Invisible City, it was published in 1988 by 12 Trees Press originally. It was my first book. I was in my mid-20s. At the time, I was living in the East Village, and New York City was, at that time, was a different place than it is now. I was living in what became an abandoned building. The landlord ditched the building. There was a shooting gallery upstairs, and we were in kind of a war with the drug dealers who were trying to take over the building. It was both an exciting place and a dangerous place, and I was 17 years old, and I was coming of age. And I found myself in this place, in this time that no one was talking about it yet because it was just starting to be. Punk rock was CBGBs, it's the Mud Club. The underground scene was still pretty underground at that point. And I fell in with a group of other artists that I knew and started documenting. I had a lot of friends who were in the performance art world, and I was just trying to make sense of it. What's out my front door. They were my people. They were my friends, my lovers, they were my people. And that's an interesting thing, because more and more now, more so than back then, people ask me, oh, this project you were working on. And I never had a sense that it was a project that I'm working on, unless I'm the project that I'm working on my whole life. It's a period of New York it's dead, it's over, it's the past. And there's a lot of friends of mine from that period that also died. And I just started really thinking about the presence of that time and the presence of those people. It was part of my process of mourning to go back into this work, and I was kind of really surprised what I came out with, because Invisible City, it's a dark book, I'll admit that. And I didn't know where Nightwalk was going to take me, and then just sort of hearing these voices and reliving these experiences, and I just started sequencing the work, and it took on a real life of its own, and became what was originally I was thinking of as maybe a little extra, special edition thing. It's twice the size of Invisible City now, and for me, it just has such a vitality and a life, and it just brings back that period, and brings back the memory of all those people that are no longer here. The neighborhood was burning the time that I was there, and sometimes the landlords would torch the buildings just to get insurance money, but also a lot of the abandoned buildings, the junkies had moved into, and they'd pass out while they were shooting up or fixing their needles, and they'd have an accident and slip and burn the building down. But it also became a kind of entertainment. This was before the internet, so. There was not much going on in the neighborhood. On a hot summer night, you'd go out and you'd watch the buildings burn. I start the book off with this. This is an abandoned building. This was the view out the window of my apartment. It's the castle. It's Kafka's castle. Here I was in a place that Jacob Riis, Louis Hine, go through, William Klein, Robert Frank. You go through the history of photography, and it took place in the same place. I was living in the same tenements that were photographed 100 years ago, but it had a different life. Another great quote that I love is Benedetto Croce's. He says, "All history is contemporary." And here I was living in this place in this particular time, and there was this history that was suffocating these people who were dying in these tenements, and I saw something that I felt no one else had seen, and I was trying to capture that. The original edition of Invisible City was printed with photogravure, which is now an archaic process. There's no offset photogravure anymore. But it was a type of printing which allowed for incredibly beautiful blacks, and it's the great Japanese photographers are known for printing their work from the 1970s. In photogravure. So the book also part of the mythology of Invisible City, because it became this underground cult classic immediately. The printing was part of the object quality of that book, and to reprint it was a question, how do we do that? And more recently, Gerhard Steidl has developed a way of printing, which I don't know of any other publisher in the world that would print this way. He's developed this 5-plate black and white process. I mean, you've heard of duotone. If you're familiar, tritone is considered, you're doing a really great printing job. Quadtone, you're getting, but he's got this process that he's developed. It's a quadtone, but then he has an extra plate of varnish, which also has black in it. I mean, you go to Göttingen and you're working with the master. I think human beings exist mostly in a state of fantasy. They have images of what they think the world is. The world is too big, too complex a place to contain in our finite minds. And so we create metaphors for things, and we think we understand something when we can only understand a piece of it and how it relates to us in different ways. And photographs become this perfect vehicle for, they're containers. They're containers for our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas. They take the place of our own ideas of things. You know, they say every time you think a thought, you change it. You change the memory of it. But photographs are static things, and I think we depend on them more and more. They anchor our sense of self, of place, but we project our fantasies into them. But because they're static, we trust them in ways that we can't trust memory, because memory is ephemeral.